That night on stage something happened. Ace Frehley went still. The guitar fell silent. And the front row looked down as if witnessing something they were ashamed to see. The venue was the Riverside Theater in Milwaukee. October 1976. 3,000 people packed into a space built for half that number. The air thick with smoke and sweat and anticipation. Ace Frehley's solo set, 45 minutes before the full band took the stage. Just him, his Les Paul, and an amplifier that could shake the building's foundation. He'd been playing for 20 minutes. The crowd was electric. Every note landed exactly where it should. Ace didn't talk much between songs, he never did. Just nodded, adjusted his guitar strap, and played the next one. Let the music speak. Let the guitar do the explaining. In the front row, pressed against the barrier, was a group of maybe 10 people. Mostly men. Early 20s. Leather jackets. Long hair. The kind of fans who knew every lick, every solo, every B-side. They'd been there since the doors opened, claiming their spot, waiting for this moment. One of them, the loudest one, the one who'd been shouting between songs, had been holding a sign. Hand-painted. Crude letters on cardboard. Ace, play without effects. Prove it's real. Ace had seen the sign. Of course he'd seen it. You don't stand on stage under lights and miss a 3-foot piece of cardboard being waved 6 feet from your boots. But he hadn't acknowledged it. Hadn't looked directly at it. Just kept playing. The guy holding the sign got louder. Started shouting during the quiet moments between songs. Come on, Ace! No pedals! Let's hear the real thing! His friends laughed. Encouraged him. It started as fan enthusiasm. Morphed into something else. Something with an edge. Showman! The guy yelled. Give us the guitar! Not the circus! Ace finished the song he was playing. Let the final chord ring out across the theater. 3,000 people roaring approval. He stood there, center stage, Les Paul hanging from his shoulder, and for the first time that night, he looked directly at the front row. At the guy with the sign. At the challenge. Ace didn't defend himself. He never did. The crowd noise faded. People sensed something shifting. The way a room goes quiet when tension walks in. Ace reached down to his pedal board, the collection of effects units that shaped his sound, that turned the guitar into something otherworldly. Distortion. Delay. Wah. The tools that made Ace Frehley sound like Ace Frehley. He turned them all off. Every single one. Click. 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 The sound of switches being flipped echoed through the PA system. People in the back rows couldn't see what he was doing, but they heard it. The deliberate dismantling of his sonic arsenal. Ace straightened up. Looked at the guy in the front row again. Still didn't speak. Just reached behind him and turned the amplifier settings to the most basic configuration possible. Clean channel. No reverb. Nothing but wood, wire, and fingers. The guy with the sign grinned. Nudged his friends. Thought he'd won something. Ace positioned his fingers on the fretboard. The theater was completely silent now. 3,000 people holding their breath. And he played. No effects. No pedals. No studio magic. Just a guitarist and an instrument having a conversation in front of witnesses. The notes came out pure. Naked. Every tiny imperfection audible. Every microsecond of timing exposed. This was playing without a safety net. This was the difference between someone who could play and someone who could make the guitar speak languages most people would never understand. 30 seconds in, the guy with the sign stopped grinning. 60 seconds in, his friends stopped looking at him. 90 seconds in, people in the front row started looking down. Not in boredom. Not in disappointment. In something else. Something harder to name. Shame, maybe? Or recognition. The understanding that they'd demanded proof of something that didn't need proving. That they'd challenged someone who'd already answered that question 1,000 times in 1,000 empty practice rooms when nobody was watching. Ace played for 4 minutes straight. No breaks. No pauses. Just one continuous demonstration of the difference between talent and gimmickry. Between flash and substance. Between someone who used effects to enhance what they could do and someone who needed them to hide what they couldn't. When he finally stopped, the silence lasted 3 full seconds. Then the theater erupted. Not the excited screaming from earlier. Something different. Louder but somehow more respectful. The applause of people who just witnessed a lesson being taught without a single word spoken. Ace looked at the front row again. The guy with the sign had lowered it. Was holding it at his side now, the cardboard bent and forgotten. His head was tilted forward slightly. Not meeting Ace's eyes. His friends were the same. All of them looking down. Looking away. Anywhere but at the stage. Away from the spotlight, Ace made a choice no one expected. Ace bent down. Turned his effects back on. One by one. Click. 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 The same deliberate process in reverse. He adjusted his guitar, positioned his hands, and launched into the next song exactly as he'd been playing before, with all the sonic coloring, all the studio craft, all the tools that made his sound his own. The message was clear: I can play it your way. But I choose to play it my way. He never looked at the front row again. Didn't need to. The point was made. Not through argument. Not through explanation. Through 4 minutes of unvarnished proof that the effects weren't covering anything up. They were adding to something that was already complete. After the set, Ace walked off stage without ceremony. No grand exit. No acknowledgement of what had just happened. Just handed his guitar to a tech and disappeared into the backstage area. The venue manager found him 20 minutes later, sitting alone in a storage room that had been converted into a makeshift dressing area. Ace was drinking water from a plastic cup, his guitar case open beside him. That was something, the manager said. That thing you did with the effects. People are still talking about it. Ace shrugged. Didn't elaborate. The kid with the sign, the manager continued. He's outside. Says he wants to apologize. Ace looked up. For what? For, you know. Challenging you like that. Making a scene. He didn't make me do anything, Ace said quietly. I chose to answer. That's different. You want to talk to him? Ace considered this. Then shook his head. No point. He already knows. Knows what? That he was wrong about the question he was asking. Subscribe and leave a comment, because some moments only make sense when we remember them together. The Milwaukee show became one of those stories that circulated through the music community. Not in magazines. Not in reviews. Just word of mouth. People who'd been there telling people who hadn't. The details shifted slightly with each retelling, but the core remained the same. Ace Frehley got challenged to prove himself. And instead of arguing, instead of defending, instead of explaining, he just played. And in 4 minutes of unadorned guitar work, he demonstrated the difference between needing effects and choosing to use them. But there's a detail that didn't make it into most versions of the story. Something only a handful of people knew about. 3 weeks after the Milwaukee show, Ace received a package at the record label's offices. Inside was the cardboard sign from that night. The one that had read, AC, play without effects. Prove it's real. Someone had mailed it to him. Attached was a note. Handwritten. Short. You were right. I was asking the wrong question. The real question isn't whether you can play without effects. It's why you choose to use them. Thanks for the lesson. I'll remember it every time I pick up a guitar. It was signed by the kid from the front row. The one who'd challenged him. The one who'd looked down when the answer came. Ace kept that sign for years. Not displayed. Not framed. Just folded up in a guitar case. Occasionally, when someone would question his use of effects, and people did, regularly, because that's what people do, he'd pull out the cardboard, unfold it, and set it on the table without comment. The sign said everything that needed saying. In 1982, 6 years after Milwaukee, Ace was in a recording studio in New York working on solo material. The engineer on the session was new to working with him. Young guy. Talented but inexperienced with Ace's approach to sound. During a break, the engineer asked, "Why do you use so many effects? I mean, you can obviously play. Why not just let the guitar be the guitar?" Ace didn't answer immediately. He walked over to his pedal board, a much more complex setup than the one from Milwaukee, and started turning things off, one by one, until it was just guitar and amplifier. Clean. Pure. Basic. He played a simple blues progression. 12 bars. Nothing fancy. Just competent, solid playing. "That's good," the engineer said. Ace nodded. Then he turned the effects back on. Played the same progression. But now it had depth. Color. Texture. Emotion that went beyond the notes themselves. "That's better," the engineer said, understanding dawning on his face. "Effects don't hide anything," Ace said, speaking more than he usually did about his approach. "They reveal. They take what's already there and show you what it could be. But you have to have something there first. That's what people don't understand. The effects are a choice, not a crutch." He went back to playing, and the conversation ended there. But the engineer told that story for years afterward. How Ace Frehley taught him the difference between using tools and hiding behind them. What followed silenced everyone in the room. The Milwaukee show eventually made it into a documentary about 1970s rock culture. Brief mention. A few seconds of narration over archival footage. But the documentarians missed the real significance. They framed it as Ace Frehley silencing a heckler, as if it were about dominance. About putting someone in their place. About winning a confrontation. They got it wrong. It wasn't about winning. It was about answering. About meeting a challenge not with words but with evidence. About demonstrating truth instead of arguing for it. Ace never corrected the documentary's interpretation. Never gave interviews clarifying what really happened. Why would he? The people who understood didn't need explanation. The people who didn't understand wouldn't get it from an interview. That was always Ace's way. Let the playing speak. Let the music be the argument. Let the results prove the point. In 2019, a music journalist finally tracked down the guy who'd held the sign that night in Milwaukee. He was in his 60s by then. Still played guitar. Taught lessons to kids in his hometown. The journalist asked him about that night. About the challenge. About what happened when Ace turned off his effects and played. The man was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I spent 40 years trying to play like that. Without the effects. Just clean. Trying to prove I had it. And you know what I learned?" "What?" "That Ace wasn't proving anything that night. He was teaching. He was showing me that the effects weren't covering up weakness. They were expressing strength I didn't have yet." He paused. "I still have that sign. My daughter asked me why I kept it. I told her it reminds me of the night I learned the difference between questioning someone's ability and understanding their choices." Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. Ace Frehley never spoke publicly about the Milwaukee show. When asked about it years later, he simply said, "People hear what they want to hear. I just played." The cardboard sign stayed in his guitar case until he retired it to a private collection. Next to it, he placed a single guitar pick, the one he'd used that night when he played without effects. No plaque. No explanation. Just the sign and the pick. The real players understood.